When a friend of mine went into college, on his first day, he entered into a large auditorium for his English class. The professor got up on stage and he held up a Bible. He opened the Bible to read James 2:14. What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no works? Can such faith save them? Later on in the same chapter, James says that faith without works is dead. And then the professor, he flipped over to Ephesians, where he read, "For it is by grace you have been saved, through faith, and it is not from yourselves. It is a gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast." He then took the Bible, slammed it down on the stage, and he said, "This book contradicts itself, and we will never be using it in this class." This controversy right here has actually been a big deal throughout the church of this. Are we saved by faith through grace so that no one can boast, or is faith without works dead? A good habit for you to be in whenever you hear someone talk about a specific verse in scripture is just to go and read it. A lot of the times when you read the full passage of scripture and get that singular verse in context, a lot of these contradictions tend to wash themselves off. So if we go and we read James chapter 2, what he's talking in there is a message to believers about how they should be living their lives. He gives this metaphor of a rich person walking into your congregation and you give them special treatment, but if a poor person walks in, you pretend like they're not even there, and how that shouldn't be how we should live as Christians. God should have done such a work in our hearts that we want to help other people. And so what James is talking about in James chapter 2, it's a message to believers after they've been saved. That's why he says faith without works is dead. That means your faith was alive at one point and you were walking with the Lord, but now your faith has died. And I don't want to get into the can you lose your salvation debate, but specifically, that's the part that you need to understand. This is a message to believers about how they should be living as believers. But then in the book of Ephesians, Paul is talking about how someone actually gets saved. The whole first chapter is talking about basically how we're doomed to hell because of our sin and there's nothing that we can do. And then it turns in the second chapter of but God being rich in mercy. And so it's talking about how you receive salvation. So these things aren't in conflict. But I want us to kind of step back. When you have someone come to you and say the Bible contradicts itself, this is a healthy habit for you to be in, is to go look at it in context. Ask yourself the question, who was this written to? Why was it written? And then what is the full context of the verses surrounding what they're saying is contradicting itself? Oftentimes that tends to take care of the issue. Sometimes you might need a little bit deeper study. For instance, one thing that we should note here is that if Paul believed you're saved by grace through faith so that no one can boast, and James believed that you're only saved by works, then they probably would have disagreed with themselves. But when we see Paul go and meet James in the book of Acts, there doesn't seem to be any sort of disagreement. Furthermore, we never get a mention in the New Testament of these two apostles disagreeing with themselves on the core tenet of salvation. This isn't a minor part of how you're supposed to be following God or how you're supposed to be living as a Christian. This is like the cornerstone of our faith, is that we're saved by grace, not through works. But once we are saved, out of the fruit that God is producing in our lives, we're going to want to go and help others and be a part of working for God's kingdom. So I hope that helps you understand these two verses better, but also gives you a broader context of how to better tackle the problems that come up whenever we're talking to people about our faith. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, and I'll see you back here next time as we continue to read through Scripture together.